right, thank you very much. We welcome everyone to the Senate Committee on Education. We welcome those who are online and present by phone. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Vice Chair Dondero-Loop.
Here.
Senator Hardy.
Here.
Senator Hammond.
Here.
Senator Lang. Senator Buck.
Here.
Senator Donate.
Here.
Chair Dennis.
Here, and if you'll just mark Senator Lang, she'll be joining us shortly. So when she gets here, try to keep an eye out for her. But if you see her, just make sure you mark her here. All right, we've got we're in deadline week this week and trying to get bills in and done. And we have 4 bills that we're going to hear today, and we have 3 that are listed for work session, which we are going to do. And I would like to do that. Actually, I was going to do that depending on when we get our full committee here. I wanted to do the work session, but let me go over some things first, and then we'll see where we're at. First, some housekeeping items. For those on video, please keep yourself muted when not speaking. Our committee information is available on Nellis, which can be accessed through our legislature's website. And you may also watch our meetings through Nellis or the legislature's YouTube channel. If you're testifying or providing public comment, please register to participate through Nellis. You will receive an email confirmation with call-in information. Detailed instruction for participating are available on the help page linked in a banner at the top of every page on Nellis. When testifying, state and spell your name and affiliation, if any. Also, when you are testifying, if somehow you're doing you speak and someone else speaks and you speak again, make sure you identify each time so that we can make sure that it's clear on the record. We're going to take public comment at the very end of the meeting, and I may limit the length of testimony and public comments to 2 minutes. Which I will actually, because of the time that we're on. I'm going to limit that to 2 minutes per person in public comment. Also 2 minutes when we talk in support and neutral and opposed testimony. I'll limit that to 2 minutes per person. And also feel free to submit your full comments in writing and briefly summarize them in your spoken testimony. You may submit written comments as outlined on the agenda by emailing or faxing them to our committee manager. I think that's it. Now let me look. Let's see. Do we have? It's not here yet. So maybe what we'll do is we'll go to the first bill. I wanted to start on a work session, but I don't see Senator on yet. So I guess we will.
Chair, I don't mind if you want to do one bill and then stop and do work session.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking that. Just wasn't looking at the timing. I just want to make sure I'm not going to be losing anybody before we get back to that. But let's go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and some other things. So as you see on the agenda, we have 4 bills to hear today. On the last one, SB 354. Because I want to make sure I am done in time for Vice Chair Dondero-Loop, who has her meeting that starts. I want to try to finish in time for her to be able to get her meeting going, because we are then going to, so we're going to take the first 3 bills, and then the last one, 354, it says we're going to reconvene at 7 or upon call of the chair. I would like to do that at 6:30 if possible, depending on where or that other committee ahead of us is at that point in time. But if we can start at 6:30, that would be my intention to do that. And so let's go ahead and start, and then we'll adjust and take a look at the time as we get going. We're going to begin first with hearing SB 126, which revises provisions relating to library services in public schools. And so I will open that hearing on SB 126, and Vice Chair Dondero Loop is going to present the bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. For the record, I am Marilyn Dondero Loop, representing Senate District 8 in Clark County, and I am pleased to present Senate Bill 126 for your consideration today. Quite simply, the goal of the bill before you today is to improve Nevada school libraries by establishing high-quality standards for facilities, personnel, and services. The American Library Association has stated that every school should have an effective school library program. While reading and books are mainstays of the school library program, today's effective school library programs are also sophisticated learning environments that provide the education and skill building students need to succeed in college and the workplace. According to data from the United States Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistics, approximately 8,830 public schools across the nation do not have school libraries. For these schools that do have a library, nearly 17,000 schools do not have a full or part-time state certified school librarian on staff. Research reportedly shows that a well-funded and fully staffed school library with a state certified school librarian is an essential component of a student's education. Across the United States, studies have demonstrated that students in schools with effective school library programs learn more, get better grades, and score higher on standardized tests than their peers in schools without these resources. School libraries and school librarians also benefit the school community as a whole. For example, school librarians provide expertise and resources that cut across grades, disciplines, and administrative functions. Essential skills of inquiry, critical thinking, use of technology, use of digital content and services, and digital citizenship are among the topics taught by school librarians in their roles as educator. School librarians plan and lead district-wide curriculum initiatives, provide professional learning opportunities to district staff, and are a resource for parents, caregivers, and others in a larger school community. School librarians foster social-emotional learning and can leverage these skills by collaborating with school counselors and school psychologists, and school librarians foster the love of reading. This skill has been invaluable over the last year, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, school librarians have supported the needs of teachers and students. School librarians have innovated during the pandemic by providing new services such as virtual checkouts, home delivery of books, and technology support for students, parents, caregivers, and school staff. They have provided hybrid teaching services with students in person and live streaming and much more. High quality school libraries and school librarians are a key component to provide a quality education for our students. In short, they are a significant part of the learning community. Senate Bill 126 takes the next steps we need as a state to ensure that this happens. At this point, I will summarize the key sections of the bill as written. There will be amendments to some of these provisions, but those changes will make more sense if I describe the bill in its current form. After a series of definitions, Section 9 requires school libraries in the Clark and Washoe County school districts meet or exceed certain requirements for physical space and scope of libraries services as set forth in the bill, and also by regulation by the State Board of Education. These requirements also apply to charter schools that enroll 500 or more students in those counties. As introduced, the minimum space requirement was 7,000 square feet. We have amended that with the current amendment that is listed. Next, Section 10 requires all school districts and large charter schools to employ a teacher librarian at their schools who's licensed to teach and is certified by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. We have also amended this statement. Section 11 provides some exceptions to the employment provisions in Section 10. School districts with fewer than 100,000 students and larger charter schools in those districts may apply for waivers from the Section 10 requirements if they are unable to employ a teacher librarian. If two schools in a school district or two charter schools with the same sponsor are unable to employ a teacher librarian at each school, they may apply for a waiver that allows one teacher librarian to provide services at both schools. Finally, Section 12 specifies that a school library assistant currently employed in the school district or large charter school is considered a teacher librarian for the purposes of the Act until July 1st, 2027. So you will see that we have a couple amendments listed, and one is that completing the professional alternate route to licensure program. We have also altered the designated space, as I mentioned before, and we also have taken out or deleted the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards and added Nevada Department of Education. In closing, when school libraries are well-equipped and fully resourced with appropriate materials, space, technology, and certified staff, school districts and charter schools can expect improved teaching and learning outcomes at the student, school, and community level. These outcomes include access to and awareness of new technologies, media and information literacy, gains in literacy and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, social, emotional learning, and increased college readiness. We owe it to Nevada students to ensure that they have access to services that will provide them with the opportunity to succeed. And on a side note, on a personal level, I served as a school librarian, and I can tell you, seeing all the schools, all the children in a school is a benefit not only to the social emotional welfare, but to develop relationships with the parents who also needed access to library services. So this concludes my presentation, and I urge your support, and I will be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any other folks doing presentation, or are we ready to go straight to
Not
questions?
today, and I unfortunately many of our school librarians went back to school today, and so the timing was not right, but I've heard from many librarians.
Great. Okay. Any questions from the committee? Yeah, Senator Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see an amendment on Nellis or what we have before us. I'm sure it exists. I appreciate the intent of the amendment and the conceptual as it may be. Do we still have an option to partner with communities and allow communities to come into school libraries?
Marilyn Dondero, for the record, Senator Hardy, could you, I'm not clear, communities, you mean allowing other people from outside of a school to come into our schools to use the library?
Right.
No, we don't. We have parent involvement. And when I was a librarian, I checked out books and equipment to our parents. But as you well can understand, with security measures and what have you, we don't allow somebody to just come off the street and come into a school.
So parents can do that right now.
Parents absolutely can do that.
It has to be a parent of a kid in the school, obviously.
Well, or a guardian, parent, guardian, grandparent, anybody who is connected to that child. Like I said, as you well can understand, it is due to security purposes.
I appreciate
and almost all schools have a public library fairly close. I can't think of many that somebody couldn't get to a public library if they needed that.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Senator Buck.
Yes, so we're coming off of a pandemic, and I know because I've been in a building, and thank you, Chair Dennis, sorry, I apologize. So through the pandemic, we've all been online, and the state actually bought Mayan Library, which is an online library. It kind of gets ready for society, which is now a lot of Kindles, a lot of iPads, a lot of software, reading software that moves the needle for kids. And so I was glad to see that there's a conceptual amendment that lessens the square footage requirement of a library, because I have yet to see where an actual library adds to student achievement or moves the needle for student achievement in my experience. Yes, we want books in the hands of kids in classroom libraries. I mean, that was where we invested, was getting them closer to kids at home libraries with Spread the Word Nevada. So I'll get to my point, but for charter schools, just mandating this facility obligation, it goes against any sort of innovation and unfunded mandate. And so why wouldn't we put these resources to teachers who teach reading, and to technology, and get that in the hands of kids, and to books in the hands of kids, as opposed to mandated libraries?
So I can speak to my situation when I was a librarian, and many times kids came in after school to ask for help. In a high school setting, they're teaching research skills. I totally understand your angst with the square footage, and that was part of the original plan from the Nevada, or from the National School Library Association. That was not something that I suggested, but that got written into the bill, and we have amended that. But absolutely, that school librarians and libraries do enhance learning with kids. If it wasn't the case, we wouldn't have such successful programs as Accelerated Reader and Mayan. They are all encouraging kids to read. We also have to remember that while many of these products are really wonderful advantages for kids, we also have kids who may not have the ability to have technology, or they may not have connectivity, and they may want a hard book. We also have children who preferred a book as opposed to reading online all the time, and parents as well. Parents want their kids to not have so much screen time, and they want them to have a book in their hand. So there's lots of reasons that kids come to libraries, and it's not just to check out a book. And when you're a certificated librarian, as is required in the Clark County School District, you have been a teacher, and you are now a librarian, and you've taught those skills.
Thank you. One other thing that just reminded me, because as I was thinking about librarians and what they do, they're also a resource for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So when teachers are trying to figure out some things, they become a resource for them. So having that,
absolutely. And just as a side note, when I was teaching in the librarian at Elaine Wynn Elementary School, we had a lot of parents. 85% of our parents were parents who came into the school and used the library, and we checked out books and product, meaning at the time it was Leapfrog and some other products that we used to help them learn English. So those parents were actually coming in and using those products as well as their kids. So we were enhancing the whole community through our library services. So thank you, Chair Dennis, that's absolutely right.
Thank you. Other questions? I don't see. Senator Lang, you didn't raise your hand, did you? Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, if that's the case, then let's, I'm going to, since I've got everybody here, if it's okay with you, Madam Vice Chair, I am going to take a pause for just a second, get everybody ready to give testimony, but I want to, if we could, move to the work session and then come back.
I'm happy with that. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So I'm going to temporarily close the hearing on Senate Bill 126 and move to our work session. I want to make sure that I don't lose folks because I want everybody to be here as much as possible when we do the work session. So, so with that, I'm going to go to our staff Ms. Jen Sturm, if she would walk us through the work session items.
Mr. Chair, Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. There are 3 bills on today's work session. The work session documents may be found on Nellis, and each member should also have a hard copy. The first bill on today's work session is Senate Bill 2, which was presented by the Clark County School District on February 10th. As introduced, Senate Bill 2 requires each school district's Board of Trustees or charter school governing board body to assess the reading proficiency of a pupil during each grade level of elementary school as determined to be necessary. The bill removes requirements for certain school districts to measure the height and weight of a representative sample of pupils. Additionally, the measure removes requirements for certain educational entities to submit information concerning pupils with disabilities and pupils with autism spectrum disorders. The measure also removes the civics exam as a high school graduation requirement. And furthermore, SB 2 changes the school district's statutory budgeting timeline and process. That is as introduced, and you'll note that attached to the work session document is a mock-up of these amendments, and it does reflect all the following proposed amendments except for item 1C. And so the first set of amendments proposed by the Clark County School District would keep the civics exam as a high school graduation requirement. Clark County School District also proposes to keep the report submitted by Nevada's Department of Education to the Aging and Disability Services Division relating to pupils with autism spectrum disorders. And the third provision or proposed amendment is to remove provisions regarding the adjustment of budget timelines. Nevada's Department of Education also proposed an amendment to allow the State Board of Education to prescribe regulations for a new statewide screener for kindergarten students among the choices of early domain options, and allow for 45 days at the start of the school year for teachers to screen their students. A student who begins kindergarten after the first 45 days of school would not be required to take this new statewide screener. And the final proposed amendment for your consideration was submitted by the Southern Nevada Health District and the Washoe County Health District. And the proposed amendment would be to continue collecting anonymous height and weight measurements in school districts located in counties whose population is over 100,000, and that's currently Clark and Washoe counties, and submitting the information to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health for purposes of compiling a report for grades 4 and 7. The amendment proposes to collect the data every other year beginning in 2022 and do so at the same time as the hearing, vision, and scoliosis screenings, which are currently conducted in grades 4 and 7. And Mr. Chair, I believe we have representatives from Clark County School District and Nevada's Department of Education on the line to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And I know that there was a lot of changes. Just want to, not having another hearing on this, but I do, just to give Dr. Keating, and who do we have? Let's start with Dr. Keating. Anything that we missed or was inaccurate in that, as far, because I know we made a lot of changes to the original bill, and if you could just make a quick comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Brad Keating for the record, representing the Clark County School District. Jen did a great job walking through the history of this bill and where we're currently at. Basically, for your consideration today is Senate Bill 2 by the Clark County School District, which contains 3 elements, and these are the 3 elements that you would be voting on, as was mentioned by Ms. Sturm. So the first one would be allowing the State Board of Education to prescribe regulations for a new statewide screener for kindergarten students, and gives teachers 45 days at the start of the school year for teachers to screen those students. After that 45-day period, the kindergarten students would no longer need to do the initial screening. So that would be section 1. Section 2 in the bill removes a duplicative report that is already included in the state validation day report. This information is already provided to the Nevada Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services in the state validation day report. So we wouldn't need to submit 2 of those. And then section 3, as was mentioned, the height and weight measurements. In working with the Southern Nevada Health District, we would move that in from a yearly stipulation to every other year beginning in 2022. So those are the 3 sections of the bill that would move forward for the committee's consideration. It was mentioned we looked at removing the budget timelines for the districts as well as charter school or state public charter schools. In consulting with the Department of Taxation, the movement of a deadline for a final budget from early June pushed backwards would have inhibited the functioning of the property tax system, which we didn't want to mess with. So just those first 3 sections, State Board of Ed regulations, removing one duplicative report, and then moving the BMI to a every other year test.
Right. Thank you very much. And who do we have from the department? Anybody? When I see the department.
Good afternoon, Chair Dennis. This is Sarah Nick of Nevada Department of Education. The department has reviewed the work session documents. Thank you to Ms. Sturm, and our subject matter experts have confirmed that the work session document matches the intent that we submitted during the bill's first hearing. So thank you to Dr. Keating and Ms. Sturm for making that possible.
Thank you very much. So committee, any questions? Senator Hardy. You're muted in case you're talking.
So the scoliosis, thank you, Mr. Chair. The scoliosis screening starts in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, etc., all the way along, or when does it start? When does it stop? In as much as scoliosis doesn't usually appear right away, and usually is decided what you are by the time you're in late high school.
So not sure. Let's see, Dr. Keating, is that something you can answer, or Ms. Nick? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair Dennis. This is Sarah Nick of the Nevada Department of Education. We are double checking regarding scoliosis, and once we can confirm that information, I'll be sure to email both Dr. Keating and Ms. Sturm, as well as you, Chair Dennis, in case we've moved on to another agenda item.
Okay.
So the other part of that question is, so the hearing, vision, and scoliosis start in 4th grade and then go every year through high school, or do they go every year 4th through 7th?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brad Keating for the record, through you to Senator Hardy. In looking at the Nevada Revised Statutes 392.420, so visual and auditory, for visual and auditory problems, students are tested before the completion of the first year of their initial enrollment in elementary school, in at least one additional grade of elementary school, and in one grade of middle or junior high school, and one grade of high school. So that's visual and auditory problems. For scoliosis, students are tested in at least one grade of schools below the high school level. And then if a school nurse determines it is necessary at an additional point of time, what the BMI height and weight originally measured prior to this bill, you voting on it today, was that we were testing students for their BMI height and weight in 4th, 7th, and 10th grade. What we will now do, we have taken out the 10th grade component of them being measured. The biggest reason for that is because students were being pulled out of content, math, and English courses in order to have that done. So we would streamline it in 4th and 7th grade so that it mirrors up with the auditory or the scoliosis testing already completed. So when those students are already doing the other exams, they will also have their height and weight tested at the same time.
So in essence, they'll be tested for their BMI every other year, starting when and ending when for their BMI, green vision, and scoliosis. I'm just not clear.
Brad, yep, no, Brad Keating for the record. So starting in the year 2022, every other year we will test the BMI and the height and weight. In working with the health districts across the state, they believed that the data, everybody believed the data was only needed every other year in order to apply for federal grants moving forward. So in the year 22, we will test 4th and 7th grade students for scoliosis and height and weight and all of those categories. In 23, they will just do their scoliosis screening and auditory screening. Then in 24, we would come back and do the whole set of tests again, and we would repeat that process.
Until
Forever. This is a Senator Dennis. This is something he cares about. So we will continue to do this as long as we possibly can. No, there's no end date on this. It's just every other year we will test the height and weight so that it's helpful to the health districts to receive grant dollars to combat the issue.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And my understanding now is, whereas before we had a limited number that could be tested, that actually that number will now go way up because we're going to do it while they're already testing for other things. So that, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Brad Keating for the record. Yes, you're 100% correct. One of the issues previously was having to create the subsets and find the schools and find the students and the classrooms and all that stuff, and working with the state to determine what amount of students were selected. In this case now, all students that would go through that scoliosis screening during their 4th grade and 7th grade year will automatically do that BMI. So we will have much greater data for the state to utilize.
Great, thank you. And also one of the things that we talked about that was difficult in this process is also the reporting piece. There's a reporting piece where the Department of Health has to report to the school districts. And that's going to happen. That's still going to continue to happen, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Brad Keating for the record. They will continue compiling a report that will be sent out to school districts, the legislature, and the state.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Senator Doñate.
Thank you so much, Chair Dennis. Just for the record, I fundamentally believe in how useful these screenings can be. And I can give a personal anecdote for that, is that when I was in elementary school, that's how I learned that I was colorblind, through the screenings that are done in these schools. So they're needed, and I think we should not stray away from that. Dr. Keating, what are the ramifications that could occur by not collecting height and weight requirements in 10th grade? Does that impact, how data is measured for late teens / early adults? Was it something that was brought up by the health district that might impact them with their grant applications? That's just my main clarification that I want before we vote on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Brad Keating for the record, representing Clark County School District. The amendment that you see before you that is included on how the height and weight are now measured every other year in only 4th and 7th grade that language was proposed directly by the Washoe County and the Southern Nevada Health District. They've indicated that it has no effect on them as long as they are collecting data in some form of year-over-year kind of period, or with that gap, that will help them be able to show the information they need in order to collect federal grants.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just for the record, we just talked about this. There's going to be a bigger data pool now because more kids are going to get tested. Even though we won't be doing the high school, we're going to have a lot more 4th and 7th graders. All right. And did I see somebody else raise their hand? Okay.
Ready for a motion, amend, do pass.
So we have a motion to amend and do pass from Senator Hardy. Second from Senator Doñate. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Was that Doñate or Hammond, or do we sound the same?
Well, Doñate, sorry. Any further discussion? Then if the secretary will take the roll call vote.
Vice Chair Dondera-Loop,
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Hammond,
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator Buck,
Yes.
Senator Donate,
Yes.
Chair Dennis.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. So let's go on to the next one on work session, which is Senate Bill 230.
Senator, I think you have to assign that.
Oh, the two.
Yes.
Thank you. I will go ahead and do that one, since a couple of those issues on there were issues that I did. So, all right. So let's go on then to Senate Bill 230. Ms. Sturm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jen Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill on work session today is Senate Bill 230, which was heard on March 31st. Senate Bill 230 requires school districts and charter schools to report information relating to distance education and its effects on mental health of pupils and teachers. Additionally, Senate Bill 230 requires each school district's Board of Trustees to ensure that all school employees receive training on social and emotional trauma. The bill further requires the State Board of Ed to adopt regulations related to these requirements. To the extent money is available, SB 230 requires the Division of Public and Behavioral Health to 1, establish a program that provides training on identifying and assisting those who have a mental illness or substance use disorder or who may be experiencing a related crisis. 2, collaborate with and inform certain individuals and entities about the program. And 3, submit a report regarding information about the program to the governor and the legislature. The training must be provided by a person who has successfully completed a mental health first aid instructor's training program. And there is one amendment proposed by Clark County School District to subsection 1E of section 1, which would be to report information related to the supports offered to pupils in distance education rather than the effects of distance learning on a pupil or teacher's mental health. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, questions? Senator Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have a few fiscal notes. Is this unfunded mandate that the school districts are going to be using, and are they in agreement to this?
Marilyn Dondera-Loop for the record. Senator Hardy, when the bill was presented, we talked about this being as funds are available, but what we're hoping is that, yes, it is an unfunded mandate, but the school districts are not mandatory. It does have a fiscal note on it currently from some school districts, others not. But what we're hoping is that we pull in, and this was part of my testimony, hoping that when they are training the certificated staff, which is teachers, principals, what have you, in a school, that they will be able to invite one lunch worker, one bus person, one custodial staff, one front office staff, whoever it may be, to come into that training so that it would not cost any more. And then therefore, when those people are interacting with our students, if there are social and emotional needs that they see on that student every single day, they'll be aware of that.
Great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Okay, if we have no other questions, do we have a motion? And I think this motion would be amend and do pass.
I would move that we amend and do pass.
Is that Senator Hammond? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Senator Doñate. Further discussion on the motion. Okay, if the secretary would call the roll, call vote.
Vice Chair Dondero Loop,
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Hammond,
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator Buck,
With my right to change my vote on the floor.
Senator Donate,
Yes.
Chair Dennis.
Yes, thank you. And that one will get assigned to Senator Dondero Loop. So let's go on then to the work session for SB 249 this term.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Gen STEM Committee Policy Analyst. The next bill on work session today is Senate Bill 249, which is sponsored by Senator Dondero Loop and heard on March 31st. The bill requires the Board of Trustees of a school district or charter school governing body to ensure that the back of any identification card for a pupil in a public school includes mental health resource information. Furthermore, SB 249 adds behavioral health to the list of authorized conditions that would allow a child's attendance to be excused. 2, allows a qualified mental health or behavioral health professional to certify that a child is not able to attend school or that the child's attendance is inadvisable. And 3, prohibits an excused attendance from having a negative effect on a school's accountability rating. And Mr. Chair, there were no proposed amendments.
If you'll remember, I think we just heard this, was it Friday? Was this one of the Friday ones or Wednesday of last week? Senator Dondero Loop, anything else that didn't get brought up here?
No, I think that the teens were such an integral part of this presentation. It was such a pleasure to have students give their perspective. And I just think it's really important in this, not only during the pandemic, but during all times with our kids.
Thank you. It's always great when students participate. Any questions? Yeah, Senator Hardy.
Do pass.
Well, let me just make sure nobody else has any questions. Any other questions? Senator Hammond?
Just a quick question. I know I asked this before, and I think Senator Loop, Dondero Loop, you're going to go and ask, I think. One of the students have brought up that if a student is using this 1, 2, or 3, or however many times, that we have a way of kind of tracking to kind of know what's going on. And that's the only thing I wanted to know is, is there some way of knowing if there's a pattern that somebody is using this and professionals, parents, then it triggers something so that parents know. Obviously, there's going to be a doctor's note, and so there's not much there, but is there anything that's going to allow us to, or the school to track? And I can't remember exactly how it was stated in there, but I didn't see any changes to it. So I didn't know if that was something you asked about and said that, no, there's no concern. And if there's no concern, what is it what isn't in the bill that doesn't give you any concern?
Thank you. Marilyn Dondero Loop for the record. Thank you, Senator Hammond, for the question. There are only 3 days up to 3 days that these students would be afforded if they need that help. So this is not an ongoing like 10, 15, 20 days. This is 3 days that they are afforded for mental health. They're certainly bringing a note in from a mental health professional or a general physician to do this. And so therefore those notes are on record. They are seeking counselors or vice principals, some other adult in the building, seeking their permission to use these days. So that will be the record that will follow them. There may be schools that actually keep track, but we didn't want it to overburden the schools with one more thing they had to track. But I know that most schools that have reached out to me, including a couple charter schools and private schools, are all saying that they track some of this already when kids come in and seek professional guidance. So I appreciate that remark or question, but they're only really afforded in this bill up to the 3 days. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that answer. Everything's taken care. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Buck.
Thank you, Chair Dennis. So, and Vice Chair Marilyn Dondera-Loop, I was wondering about how this isn't, it says that it's not negatively going to affect the rating. And so currently, even when a parent writes an excuse note, it affects the school's rating. So how is this going to be tracked differently to not affect the rating? That's my question.
That would go along. Thank you, Senator Buck, Marilyn Dondera, for the record. That will go along to the last answer that I gave. What will happen is if a student comes in with a note from a professional and asks that this student be excused for 1 day, I mean, they may not need all 3. That will not go against their absences, which affect the ratings for the schools. We all know that. And I talked with the Clark County School District actually extensively about this, and they said that there was a way for them to work with that so that a student would not be held, or the school would not be held accountable or against their star rating in order for that student to take that mental health day.
If I may follow up, Chair, because
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, because typically, even when you have a doctor's note, it's still an absence that goes against you on the rubric, the metric. So I'd be curious to know how that it ends up being tracked differently. Because even when a parent writes a note, if they're out with some ugly illness or something, that it still goes against the school. So again, I'd like the staff to look into that, but I don't think there is a way around that currently.
Thank you, Senator Buck, Marilyn Dondera-Loop, for the record. So as I mentioned, I had an extensive conversation with the Clark County School District, and there is a way around it. When they bring in these notes from the professionals, they will not go against that student. That is the nemesis of the bill. This has been done in many other states. It was sort of fashioned, if you will, after the Oregon bill. But many bills, many states have got a bill for students to be able to do this. So with that being said, I can only tell you what I have heard from the Clark County School District, what I have heard from legal in our staff, who I trust explicitly, and what I have talked to other schools about. And I haven't had one person say they couldn't do it yet.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, then I'm gonna go back to Senator Hardy.
So moved again.
We've got a move to pass since there's no amendments. We have a second. Second from Senator Hammond. Any further discussion? All right. With that, if Secretary would call a roll call vote.
Vice Chair Dondera-Loop,
Yes.
Senator Hardy,
Yes.
Senator Hammond,
Yes.
Senator Lang,
Yes.
Senator Buck,
Yes.
Senator Donate,
Yes.
Chair Dennis.
Yes, thank you. And if Senator Dondera-Loop, we'll have you do the floor statement on that one.
Thank you kindly.
Okay, with that, we will now go back. So we've done the work sessions. We'll now go back to Senate Bill 126. Before I go to support testimony. Is there any other, since we had a break here, any other questions come up that we need to answer on that bill? Not seeing any. So if we could go to our first person to speak in support.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on SB 126, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in support. Caller with the last 3 digits, 577, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon. Chris Daly, D-A-L-Y, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSCA fully appreciates the important function of libraries in public education and supports SB 126 while also seeking an amendment to ensure that every student has access to a school library. School libraries play a critical role in our schools and communities. School librarians and library assistants support student achievement by providing research help, digital learning opportunities, and professional development programs, in addition to providing the traditional library services to help prepare strong students. We know when spending for school libraries increases, so does improved student literacy. Numerous studies have shown the impact the school library and teacher librarian have on school environment and student achievement in reading and writing, and even math. Access to a school library is an equity issue, as our most racially diverse and lowest income communities have the least access to library services. Graduation rates in reading and math achievement are significantly higher in schools with high quality libraries and certified librarians, even after controlling for other factors like school spending, class size, and poverty. NSCA was an organizational sponsor last session of SB 191 to require library space and materials, as well as library services in every school. We applaud Senator Dondera Loop for continuing this important advocacy. NSCA represents 65 library assistants in the Washoe County School District who also provide important library services to students. This bill would allow for existing library assistants to continue in their role until 2027, avoiding the specter of layoffs that would only work against the goal of promoting access to library services. We would ask for consideration of an amendment to this bill to include support for library assistants with access to important professional development through available library science programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 055, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
My name, for the record, my name is Marilyn Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T. Greetings, Senators on the Education Committee and others in attendance. I strongly believe in every school in Nevada should have a school library. A library is a place of wonder and discovery. It is a place to study and learn independently and individually, as well as with a class of students. It is imperative that a place in each school be set aside and designated as a library for this purpose. This needs to be a place that is large enough for a class of students to be instructed on the use of research materials, databases, and online resources, as well as having a place at the same time individual students can be studying, finding reading materials, and receiving individual help with their interests. The library is a place for free discourse, wonder, and learning, access to Wi-Fi and technology, and access to a certified librarian. Someone trained in library science, yes, but someone also trained in pedagogy, child and adolescent psychology, lesson planning, collaboration, and all the tools that help students make the most of their 21st century Nevada education. I realize some people speak against having certified librarians in all the schools in Washoe and Clark counties. There is a cost to adding a trained teacher, but are we really suggesting that we could have someone who has not been trained as a teacher teaching our students in schools in Nevada? We would not let our district hire non-certified teachers beyond the emergency measures that sometimes exist, such as this current pandemic, or needing alternative route to licensure teachers in hard-to-fill positions. Why would we then let them do this with our teacher librarians? When I started my current job as a certified high school librarian, the one thing that I had to convince my staff, and perhaps it is what I have to convince all who would speak against this bill, is a librarian in the schools is teacher plus, not teacher minus. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 927. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Dennis and committee members. My name is Hava Ahmed, Hawahahmaz, and I am a graduate of Washoe County School District representing the Clark County Education Association. The Clark County Education Association is the official bargaining partner for the Clark County School District and represents more than 18,000 licensed professionals, including school librarians. We engage in bipartisan advocacy for advancing public education in Clark County and Nevada. CCEA is testifying in support on Senate Bill 126. After consultation with our librarians, CCEA proposed to the sponsor of this bill that Section 7, Subsection 2 be amended to allow for flexibility for alternative routes to licensure programs and changes the and to an or for the requirement that an individual must hold an associate degree or higher in library sciences. Additionally, we proposed taking out the stringent requirement requiring 7,000 square feet for a library to be a designated classroom or open area that is accessible to students during school hours. The hope is that this bill will stimulate a new era for libraries across every school in Nevada and shift focus away from size to quality and access of the library. As a child, I used my school library to give me access to books that open doors to adventure, knowledge, and growth. It is CCEA's intent that this bill, with its amendments, will provide the same opportunities to every student in Nevada. Lastly, in Section 10, Subsection 2, Subsection B, we're asking that the and be turned into an or, with the Nevada Department of Education being the entity to prescribe regulations for certification of a professional school library media specialist, pursuant to the Nevada Administrative Code. We would like to thank Senator Dondero Luke for listening to the concerns of our librarians and look forward to expanding how we leverage technology within our schools, utilizing libraries as a key resource. We would again like to thank Senator Dondero Luke for bringing this bill forward and are looking forward to doing all that we can to ensure libraries are updated and accessible to our students, especially as we move forward in this post-pandemic world. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 023. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dennis and members of the committee. My name is Brenda Pearson, Brenda Pearson, representing the Clark County Education Association, and I am reading a statement into the record for Susan Slikerman. As a school librarian, library advocate, and constituent, I urge you to support Senate Bill 126. At the time when Nevada state library standards have become updated and relevant to our future and present, in a country where equity, diversity, and inclusion have become front and center, and during an unprecedented point in our world when reading becomes a safe haven and essential for our emotional and mental survival, these signify the magnitude of which this bill represents. There are studies to prove the connection between quality certified school librarians and student achievement, which I'm sure you're aware of and shouldn't be excused. In addition, the following points are why I'm supportive of this bill. Senate Bill 126 affects districts with a population of 100,000 or more, which includes only Washoe and Clark County in the state of Nevada, which reduces any possible fiscal state responsibility. Paraprofessionals have up to 6 years to gain licensure and certification, which will alleviate an initial fiscal impact to schools in which time revenue and savings can accrue. It's time for Senate Bill 126 to be made law. In closing, I'd like to thank Senator Dondero Luke for sponsoring this bill as an improvement to student achievement, the education system, and the future leaders of our youth. Thank you, Susan Slikerman.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support on SB 126, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Okay, let's go to those that are opposed. Wishing to give testimony in opposition. We could cue them
If you would like to testify in opposition on SB 126, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in opposition on SB 126, press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits, 411, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, this is Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. We've reached my least favorite day of every session and testifying in opposition to this bill. I'd certainly like to thank the bill sponsor for her willingness to introduce this legislation with the amendments that she mentioned. She has certainly gone above and beyond and willing to address the concerns of the Washoe County School District to the extent it was possible. This is not a new conversation between us. As you may know, in Washoe County School District, our elementary schools are staffed with library aides, which are not licensed educators, but valuable members of our support staff, many of whom have been providing value in our schools for many years. I would like to clarify that all Washoe County schools do have a school library. While we appreciate the long time frame for our current library aides to make the transition to being a fully licensed teacher, in many cases that would require our aides to receive a bachelor's degree in order to qualify. This is often not something our staff are able to take on while continuing to work all the time as financial providers for their families. Additionally, we're concerned about the ability to hire more than 60 licensed school librarians over the next 5 years. Currently, we only hire a handful each year. While increasing the demand will likely increase the supply, it's unlikely we could train that many by the required time. I want to be clear, we love school libraries, school librarians, and our library aides. We have a tremendous partnership with the Washoe County Library System, which also includes some of our school libraries functioning as community libraries. Thank you to Senator Dondero Loop for working with us as much as possible on this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 244, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Chair Dennis, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Victor Salcido, S-A-L-C-I-D-O, with the Charter School Association of Nevada. We're here in opposition to this bill as much as we would like to support it, and I'd like to echo some of the same sentiments from Ms. Anderson of the Washoe County School District just mentioned. Like them, we too love and appreciate the role that libraries and librarians play in the school. Our concern with this bill is purely fiscal. We know all school districts and public charter schools are unfortunately underfunded as it is. So our concern here is, simply said, it's our utter inability to come close to paying for this. Now, we do appreciate Senator Dondero Loop mentioning some amendments that may have answered some of these concerns. Obviously, we have not seen those yet, and when we do, we'll review them and see where we are at that point. Unfortunately, we have to take this position to the bill as written, and that is why we're opposing it as it currently stands. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Chair, there are no more callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Let's go then to those wishing to give who wish to testify who are neutral on the bill.
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 126, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in neutral on SB 126, please press star 9 now. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. Senator Dondero Loop, any final comments?
Thank you, Chair Dennis. I had to find the cursor. Thank you very much for your time today. Members of the committee, I appreciate you taking the time to consider this measure, and I urge your support of Senate Bill 126, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. With that, we will go ahead and close the hearing. on Senate Bill 126 and open the hearing on Senate Bill 210. Senator Dondero Loop.
Hey, just a second and let me change gears here. Thank you very much again, Mr. Chair. And for the record, I am Marilyn Dondero Loop, representing Senate District 8 in Clark County, and I'm pleased to present Senate Bill 210 for your consideration. This bill supports the continued education for those experiencing emotional disturbances. Our society still struggles with the signs of mental illness. Even though mental illness to some degree is common, this stigma can have lasting impacts on a person's life. One key challenge facing our education system is how best to support the individual learning needs of every student. No matter their circumstances, every child has a right to an education. We know marginalized populations are much less likely than others to experience a successful transition to adulthood. Students experiencing emotional disturbances, for example, have been marginalized because of the unique circumstances they face that require a differentiated approach to their learning. It is critical that we find the needs of these groups to not only improve their lives, but also help support them in becoming fully contributing members of society. As part of our continued efforts in addressing mental health in our schools, it is important to examine how we address those children who have severe cases, including those being submitted to our specialized facilities. I would now like to turn over the presentation, and I apologize. Hang on just a minute. I have to go back to another piece. I would like to turn over the presentation to, and I apologize, Jillian, I apologize. I am going to mispronounce your name. So Jillian Block. I hope I have that all right, Jillian, and I apologize for the delay there. And I'd like to turn it over to Jillian to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair. You said my name perfectly. Thank you. For the record, my name is Jillian Block, representing the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. I also have two attorneys with me on the Zoom today from the Children's Attorney Project at the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada to help answer any questions, Kelly Vinci Gonzalez and Amy Hanadal. So this bill amends 432B, which covers children who are in foster care. As Vice Chair Dondero Loop said, the goal of SB 210 is to ensure that when children in the child welfare system are placed in psychiatric hospitals, they are still receiving the education that they are entitled to by law. SB 210 will help to ensure that these children get an adequate education while they are receiving treatment and that they have a smooth transition when they return to school. So before I walk through this bill, I just want to share a story from our legal service providers that highlights the need for this bill. Our attorneys represent children in foster care and more often than not have seen our clients' educational needs fall to the wayside when they are in hospitals and treatment centers. The idea for this bill came from Ms. Vinci Gonzalez, who is on the Zoom and can speak more to this. When she had a client who was in a wheelchair, have his wheelchair locked in front of a computer all day while he was in a residential treatment center. This was the only education this child received during his stay. Excuse me. So the proposal before you would have forced a meaningful conversation about the plan to ensure this child's educational rights were met and then its progress was monitored. I want to start by pointing out that NRS 432B.6082 currently states that a child who is in the custody of an agency which provides child welfare services and who is admitted to a facility has the right to receive an education as required by law. So our goal is to strengthen this existing law. We want to clarify that what the treatment centers are required to do to provide that education and to ensure that there is communication and coordination between the treatment centers and the school districts to ensure that children have educational continuity. As you will see, this bill is short, but it covers a lot of chapters because there are a lot of parties that, if we're better coordinated, would improve the outcomes for our most vulnerable foster youth. And we are very grateful for the feedback we've received from stakeholders on how to accomplish this goal. So working from the proposed amendment, which is on Nellis, Section 1 distinguishes between an acute psychiatric treatment center, which is typically a shorter stay, and a residential treatment center, which is typically a longer stay. Section 1, subsection 1 deals with acute psychiatric treatment centers. When a foster child is admitted to an acute psychiatric treatment center, the facility would be required to develop a plan to educate the child, to promote continuity while the child is hospitalized, and to make recommendations to the school, if appropriate, upon discharge, to be provided to the school district, and the child's caseworker. Section 1, subsection 2 lays out what is required to be in this plan that the facility will develop, which includes the number of hours of instruction for the child, how instructional materials will be transferred to the facility from the school, how the child's progress will be monitored, and how the child will be transitioned back into school upon discharge. Section 1, subsection 3 deals with residential treatment centers and applies only to a child who is in the custody of a child welfare agency and who has an IEP. So before a child is admitted to a residential treatment center, the school district would be required to convene an IEP meeting regarding the child's educational needs to inform the conversation on the child's needs and ensure that they are considered. The school district will then collaborate with the residential treatment center to monitor the student's progress at the facility and the student's return to school. And this part of the bill, section 1, subsection 3, will codify MS versus LA Unified School District, which is a 9th Circuit decision that says that the school district has an obligation to convene an IEP meeting pursuant to IDEA in this circumstance. Sections 5 and 6 add references to the provisions of this act to NRS chapters 392 and 394, dealing with public and private schools respectively, just to provide the guidance and direction to the public and private schools. We also are proposing an amendment to NRS 338E, which is the chapter on education for foster children. And that would be to include a reference of section 1 of this bill, just to ensure that it's considered in the chapter that covers the foster child's educational rights. The amended version of this bill also adds a new section that amends NRS 433B.300 to reference section 1 of this bill to include a plan for continued education for the child to the requirements for treatment provided just for jurisdictional coherence. And lastly, I will just note that we received a request from NDE for the effective date for this to be December 31st, 2021. And I believe with that, we are ready to take questions from this committee unless Vice Chair Dondero Loop has anything else that she would like to add. Thank you.
No, I think, Chair, if you're ready, we'll stand for questions.
Thank you. All right. Questions? You got Senator Lang, and then I think Senator Hammond has a hand.
Hi, Senator Dondero Loop. I just have a quick question about this bill. And so after an IEP is done and the student is going to follow that IEP when they're in the facility, who is going to provide oversight and instruction to that student if they don't just pretend they're doing math and they don't understand what's going on? Who's going to provide the instruction to them when they're in that facility?
This is Holly Bensi Gonzalez, Team Chief of the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. What usually happens is the IEP, if the child goes out of state, and unfortunately most of our children go out of state away from their families and their communities. They go to Missouri, they go to Texas, they're away from us. That IEP, the school district or the facility has 30 days to change it to that state. So if it's a Texas facility, they'll change it to a Texas IEP, Missouri, so forth and so on. So then that school becomes responsible for implementing the day-to-day. So if a child is struggling with a math problem or something to that extent, that will be resolved or handled in that school. The issue comes with monitoring. We look forward to partnering with CCSD and collaborating with them so that there's a smooth transition when that child goes to the school and when the child comes back. Because a lot of times what happens is the child is just kind of placed back in Nevada with no plan, no interaction, no conversation between the RTC and placement. And so it can delay enrollment, it can delay services for that child. And so what we want to see is our kids have done the hard work when they are sent their locked facilities. They feel like oftentimes hospitals. When they've done the hard work on their part, we want to honor that and make sure that we as the adults do the planning so that it's a seamless transition when they come back, that it's the right schooling, the right programming. They're ready to, convert the IEP back to a CCSD IEP so that transition process happens a lot smoother. I just worked on one due process complaint where that didn't happen and the child came back, and delay in getting that child in school, delay in proper programming, pretty much everywhere. It made for a very kind of disorganized transition. And ultimately, I don't think that's fair to the child. We want to show them that, we recognize the hard work they've put in and we're going to be working with them as well. So that's traditionally what happens. And so what will happen is the school will become an important player and part of this process in lending their expertise to these transitions and so forth with placement and whatnot.
Okay.
A follow-up question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, but if they're, so I get that and I think that's great, but if you have a student who's admitted to a psychiatric hospital facility, and as I understand the bill, you're creating an IEP for that student that's in that facility, who's going to provide oversight on that student when they're in that facility?
So it would be, and if I understand your question correctly, who would provide oversight while the child is there? It would be sort of a joint effort between the school, the facility providing the day-to-day oversight and management, and then CCSD monitoring the progress. So it wouldn't be, CCSD would not be practicing education in another state. That would still be the responsibility of the RTC, whether some RTCs send their kids to local school districts, some don't. They educate right on campus. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, I might come back at it a little bit later.
Okay.
Let me think about it. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the only thing I wanted to know is a little bit more about the genesis. I mean, I know a couple of years ago, I had helped a couple of constituents. We looked at the problem that their students had was that they had some long-term health issues. And so we went to the Clark County School District and we were looking at a bill, but then realized that they could actually help facilitate anybody with long-term illness. Obviously, something is not the same here. There's not an equivalency or something that's going on. It's just not the same. Some slipping in the cracks, and I didn't know about this at all. Can you explain a little bit more about how this came about? Why is it that we're having problems, and is it more pervasive than perhaps we know about? Is it mostly in Clark County, or is it throughout the state? Are we having this happen quite often?
Sure. The genesis of the bill, and I'll start with acute psychiatric hospitalization first, is that oftentimes, so a child has a mental health crisis, and then they're admitted to one of our psychiatric hospitals. Now, one might think, well, they're in crisis, they're not going to be able to access the curriculum, and so why do that? But that's not entirely the case. A lot of kids are stable and in there for a certain amount of time. They might be in there a week, 2 weeks, awaiting placement or awaiting some other issue. And so they're perfectly stable. They shouldn't fall behind in their studies, but they're not getting any education while they're in these facilities. They get out a couple of weeks later and sort of plot back in on a comprehensive campus. We just want a sort of more coordination between the facility and the school district so that there is a seamless transition. The psych hospital could recommend, if the child doesn't have an IEP, like, hey, maybe you want to, think about a 504 plan or an IEP for this child. There's different things, recommendations they could make, and they can also help with the schoolwork while the child is in there. A lot of times I represent kids in foster care. There's a delay in placement. It's very hard to place high needs kids that have a lot of complex mental health issues. And so if they're sitting and waiting, we can't really, they still need to be going to school. I think legal aid's philosophy is that kids need to be going to school and making progress. Foster children perform worse than any other group of kids in our system, in our jurisdiction. And so we really need to make sure that we are supporting them so that they can keep on track with their studies. For residential placements, I think the biggest issue is what happens is just the transition. Oftentimes a child is withdrawn from CCSD no determination made if that child should even be in RTC. The child goes off to RTC, goes off to residential treatment. We have no idea what's going on with school. There's no one really monitoring the school progress or the quality, even the quality of schooling at that placement. And then the child comes back and there's no, you know, there's no warm handoff. There's no handoff at all really back to CCSD. And then we figure, well, where are we going to place this child? What supports do they need? What was working while they were in residential treatment? And that conversation never happened. And it's a real disservice to our clients that they're not preparing for when this child is returned to CCSD. So that is kind of the origin for the bill, is to just better plan for our kids. You know, they don't have a parent that's vociferously advocating for them along the way. So to make sure that someone is watching out for these kids with their academics.
That's a great explanation. I appreciate that. So if I could just real quick follow up then. So there was something in the regulation that exists now that just didn't work here. What was the thing that's missing, I guess, that you put in the bill that, you know, that we just didn't have for students who fit into this category as opposed to long-term health care? Like there was a student that I knew who, you know, I think he was a senior and had cancer. And so they put him in I think it was an IEP and then facilitated that. So what was missing between regulation and this?
Ms. Fancy Gonzalez, before you answer, would you make sure and state your name for the record? Thank you very much.
I apologize, I keep forgetting. Kelly Fancy Gonzalez. What I think is going to be different is that what the statute said before is that children in locked facilities have a right to an education. And then that was the end of the discussion. This bill hopefully will prescribe what that right is, convene an IEP meeting, have someone monitoring their progress. So hopefully it's a little more descriptive for our clients once they, you know, are in this process. You know, kids who go to residential and are in foster care go through a court system. A court has to order them into treatment. And so bringing the school in and their expertise will be really helpful. And I think this bill will kind of bring all the players to the table to hopefully work what's best for that child.
Yeah, sort of one-stop shop. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the explanation and the genesis, the background. Thank you.
All right, other questions? I am not seeing any other questions. So with that, then why don't we go to testimony and support. So if we could cue that up, those that are in support.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support on SB 210, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in support on SB 210, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 411, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, this is Lindsay Anderson on behalf of the Washoe County School District, LINDSAYANDERSON. I'd like to thank the bill sponsor and specifically Bailey Borland for working closely with the Washoe County School District on this highly technical piece of legislation. Washoe County School District works hard to have a close relationship with our local residential treatment centers and our students who are placed there. We are committed to their academic success and their overall well-being. If this is necessary to achieve that, we'll gladly work together under this framework. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If we go to the next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 692, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przynski, MaryPierczynski, and representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and we are in support of this legislation. We think it's important, and we want to thank the sponsor for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 377, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Deshaun Jackson, DAFHUNJACKSON. I serve as the Director of Children's Safety and Welfare Policy with the Children's Advocacy Alliance. And we stand in support of Senate Bill 210. We believe this bill is essential to ensuring that the youth receive the services that they need. Essentially, we know offering educational services can support transition back after hospitalization and reduce learning gaps for youth who are struggling. Thank you so much, committee, and thank you so much for the bill sponsors.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 080, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Hi, Jim Hoffman, HOFFMAN, for Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. NACJ supports SB 210. All children have the right to an education, including kids in a mental health institution. Some of these kids are admitted in connection with criminal or delinquency cases. Those kids don't just have the right to an education, they are most in need of one in order to help address the underlying issues and prevent them from going further down a bad road. SB 210 contains protections to help kids in this situation, and so NACJ supports it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 147, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dennis and members of the Senate Education Committee. This is Bridget Duffy, BRIGID, DUFFY, Chief of the Juvenile Division for the Clark County DA's Office. I am putting my support on the record on behalf of the Child Welfare Agency here in Clark County. This policy is important to ensure that our foster care children's education is prioritized even when they are in need of mental health stabilization. Thank you to Senator Dondero-Loop and our partners at Legal Aid for bringing the bill forward and for working with me specifically to ensure that this concept is placed into both statutory sections of 433B and 388 so that the state and Legal Aid can work together in the juvenile court system to ensure the facilities and school district are meeting the requirements of the law. We also appreciate the clarification in the proposed amendment that the failure to convene an IEP should not be seen as a sole factor to delay admittance. Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of choices when our children are in mental health crisis or in need of a long-term residential treatment facility. And so we do not want it to be delayed and therefore our children losing bed placements as we wait for an IEP to occur. I wish we had 4 or 5 places to choose from and could choose the one that's best for our children's education. Unfortunately, that is not the system across the nation that we have for mental health. Thank you very much, and I definitely support SB 210's policy.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 080, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Dennis, members of the Education Committee. My name is Brad Keating, B-R-A-D, Keating, K-E-A-T-I-N-G, with the Clark County School District, testifying in support of SB 210. This bill ensures that all students have a smooth transition into and out of a hospital setting and to receive an educational experience that is seamless, something that the Clark County School District supports wholeheartedly. There have been discrepancies in past situations with how next steps should be interpreted. This bill helps clarify that so all parties are following the right protocols. It also ensures that the facility maintains compliance for students' IEPs. We appreciate Bailey Bordelin and Senator Dondero-Loop for working with our school district on the proposed amendments before you today to clarify the language, and we urge the committee's support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next caller.
Caller with the last three digits, 120, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Stephen with a V, Cohen as in the Assemblywoman. I'll begin with ditto. I look forward to sharing the specifics of our family's story with our senator who sits on this committee. Tentatively tomorrow afternoon. It's been bumped a couple of times, but understandably. The only friendly amendment that I would offer would be switching emotional disturbance to intellectual and developmental disability, or language that's more friendly to the person. But other than that, in terms of policy, I completely support it. And with that, Mr. Chair, thank you, and I yield.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
All right, let's go to those that are opposed. Anyone wishing to give testimony in opposition, please cue them up.
If you would like to testify, yes, Chair. If you would like to testify in opposition on SB 210, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. So then let's move to those who wish to testify in neutral on this bill. Please, the next caller.
If you would like to testify in neutral on SB 210, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Great, thank you, Senator John Darrell Loop. Any closing comments?
I just thank you very much for listening to Senate Bill 210. It speaks to our students with disabilities who have the IEPs or individualized education programs. It requires our school districts to provide those services to the psychiatric hospitals and facilities. And I just want to thank you very much for listening and hearing this bill. It's so important to our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So with that, I will go ahead and close the hearing. And we will make sure I get my agenda here. So we close the hearing on SB 210. And we are going to open the hearing on SB 252. And since I will be presenting, I will turn over the gavel to my Vice Chair, Don Darrell Loop.
Thank you very much, Chair Dennis. And with that, I will open the hearing on Senate Bill 352.
Let me make sure. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and committee members. For the record, I am Senator Mo Dennis, representing Senate District 2. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting SB 352, which ultimately helps reduce additional barriers for those who want to become teachers. The phrase chronic teacher shortage has been voiced countless times over the years and remains one of the biggest challenges facing our education system. This is certainly not a new issue plaguing Nevada's school system. In fact, this was an issue before I even came to the legislature. What keeps me awake sometimes is knowing that as more of the state's baby boomers retire, our need for new teachers will only grow, making our teacher corps even younger and less experienced. Nevada is not the only state affected by this problem. Shortages have grown in recent years as enrollment in teacher preparation programs has declined nationwide. One report by the Center for American Progress suggests these programs have experienced a drop by a third from 2010 to 2018. Districts across the country are facing severe and chronic teacher shortages, especially within certain subjects and specialty areas. We know these persistent shortages can be very costly for districts and can have a negative impact on workforce quality, student outcomes, and student climate, among other things. Even worse, the greatest impacts of these shortages are typically seen in schools that can least afford them. This legislature has done a lot of great work over the years to address teacher shortages, including strengthening recruitment and retention efforts. In fact, the report by the Center for American Progress, both enrollment and completion for Nevada's teacher preparation programs are actually slightly increased in the past decade. However, while we have made some progress, it is not enough, and we cannot become complacent. The bill before you today is another way to help eliminate barriers for those who want to enter the teaching profession, which ultimately helps build our teacher workforce. Senate Bill 352 requires the Commission on Professional Standards in Education to adopt regulations that authorize a currently employed paraprofessional who is enrolled in a program to become a teacher to complete an accelerated student teaching program in the same or similar area in which the person is currently employed. The Commission must also adopt regulations that require Nevada's Department of Education to accept student teaching experience completed outside of Nevada if the experience substantially fulfills Nevada's requirement. This bill came about in a discussion with Ms. Shelley Crawford, who is a principal at C.C. Rano Elementary School, and she was working on a project, and she'll talk about how she came about doing that. But I appreciate having that discussion with her because really, we really do need to fill this teacher shortage. And I feel that this is one of those ways that can actually help in that. One of the biggest challenges, and I've talked about this before, is that having a son and a wife, for that matter, not too many past years, that have gone through and become teachers, student teaching, which takes a semester, causes some people to have to not work for a semester. They have to make some other sacrifices in order to be able to get their teaching license or to be able to graduate. And this bill addresses that issue for those that are already working in school districts, already in the classroom, and it allows them to be able to eliminate some of these barriers. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and conclude my remarks, but I wish to have Ms. Crawford, if she would do her presentation. And we also have several folks that are here from universities, from the NSHE, others that could answer questions on what the actual impact of this would be. And so I know one of the other things that this bill will do is bring some continuity and consistency between institutions in the state of Nevada as to how student teaching is done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Crawford.
Shelley Ziqueros Cruz Crawford for the record. I'd like to thank our bill sponsor, Senator Dennis, and members of the board. I have with me Dr. Morgan from UNLV College of Education and Dr. Easton Brooks from UNR, available to answer any clarifying questions. This bill started with a conversation with my support staff members, asking them if they were interested to become licensed teachers. And as I went through this process, I realized that many of my support staff members would like to be licensed teachers, but were struggling with many barriers far beyond their control. So what I started doing was asking them what they needed support with and becoming someone that could help them clear the pathway, create a pathway to licensure. And what I found is, as I supported my support staff members to become licensed teachers, they were diverse. They lived in the neighborhoods in which they worked. They came with a whole bunch of background knowledge and experience in education, and they were more likely to stay at their home schools rather than out-of-state candidates. And as I worked with the Public Education Foundation's Executive Leadership Academy, I decided, this would be a great project to facilitate and try to replicate around the district. I think someone's not on. So what we did is we surveyed PCSE, but this project is a culmination of educational institutions and stakeholders around the state of Nevada. You hear a little backlog there. I don't know if you guys hear it. Okay, I will proceed. So I'm going to
if everybody could make sure that their microphones are muted, that might help us. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure everybody's microphones were muted.
It's okay. I'm a teacher, so I can wait.
The teacher pause. The teacher pause. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So I'm just going to show a little bit of data. The purpose, there's many purposes of this bill, but significantly, SB 352 really helps fill those teacher vacancies. It increases student achievement because students of color will have more diverse representation in their classroom, and it creates pathways for upward mobility. So I just grabbed this off of CCSD's recruitment and retention report that just came out last month. But here are some statistics. 1,200 students in 489 classrooms are going to start their first day of school without a licensed full-time teacher. This bill would aim to fill those vacancies. 12.1% of CCSD first-year teachers leave after 1 year. By allowing support staff members to student teach in the schools they work in, it's more likely for them to stay. And also our support staff members, race and ethnicity matches more representation of the students that they service. So here's a recent report. If you see the dark blue bars, those represent our students, and the light blue bars represent our staff members. So right here we have white populations of students versus staff. We have African Americans representation of students versus licensed staff. And we have American Indian right here, and Hispanic, Pacific Islander, and multiracial. And if you can see, all of the dark blue bars or student representations are higher on the student end, except for in the white category. Well, why is that important? Because students, research has shown from Johns Hopkins University that students that have a diverse teacher once in their life is less likely to drop out of high school, more likely to go to college. And our support staff members would fill that need. So with that, I surveyed support staff members, and we found that there was 1,383 support staff members, and of that, 73% are interested in becoming licensed teachers. And with that, here are the barriers. Financial aid was the biggest barrier for support staff members, specifically student teaching. So many of our support staff members do not become licensed teachers because they cannot take off 16 weeks for student teaching. And hold on real quick. So in order to better understand the actual support staff members that this bill would help and teachers, I have some videos from some of the support staff members. But remember, the bill is to allow support staff members to continue to work as long as their license is in that position. So I have a support staff member right now who is an SBTA in a special ed classroom. She needs to do her student teaching, become a licensed special ed teacher. She would have to take off her time off of work and go to another school in her same position. Whereas right now she could stay in her position, and then she would be able to do student teaching within her current role, keep her benefits, and keep her pay. If this option is not available for her, she would just stop her education and not become a licensed teacher. Share this. Am I still sharing my screen? No, here, okay.
our students. So I'll start off with Ms. Hernandez. Ms. Hernandez, if you can introduce yourself, tell us what you do, your story, and what you're doing to become licensed.
Good morning. My name is Ms. Hernandez, and I am an SPTA at Rondo Elementary. I currently work with the Inclusion Title I Pre-K program, and I've also been in self-contained early childhood. I've been an SPTA for about 7 years, and 4 years prior, I was also a substitute for about 4 years at the same school. So I've been kind of made it a career, my education. And as a single mom of 4 kids, every day is a struggle financially and just with childcare. So that's kind of been a block, like a wall in my career path. It seems like as soon as I want to, get going, finish my degree, something always has to stop me, and it's things that are just out of my control. And yeah, but I mean, I just keep blocking those punches and keep trying to roll, even if I go slow, but it's just been too long. Yeah, those are just my most biggest struggles is financially and just childcare, trying to work full time and then come home and study and still take care of my family, just providing the basic needs for them and still trying to finish what I need to finish with schooling and finish my degree. So those are my struggles.
Thank you, Irene, for sharing your story. I'm in awe and so proud to work beside you every day. So thank you for what you do. Ms. Fatuma.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fatuma Abdullahi. I'm currently at CC Rondo Elementary School. I'm a FLS SPTA. Before I did the kids program, and then the kids program would turn to the FLS program. I substituted for the district for 7 months before I got the full-time position at CC Rondo Elementary School. I've been here, still here for 5 years now. And right after high school, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So I've been going at it, taking classes, one class after work, because being that I'm at work full-time, I can't take the full-time classes. So now I'm at the point where I'm almost done, 1 year to go. I'm at the point where I have to finish my practice tests. So I've been struggling to pass them. I have been taking them over and over. And I think the reason is because when I came to America, I started school in 3rd grade. So I had to learn everything fast. So I have to now teach myself the things that I missed. So I'm teaching myself the rules of grammar, the rules of writing, the rules of mathematics, all over again. So I can pass these 3 exams, I can get my license.
Fatuma, we're also working on something with the State Department so that if there's a part of the praxis that you don't pass, afterwards you can take a equivalent course. So if you don't pass that math portion, you would then take a math equivalent. And we're working on some funding for that as well.
That is awesome. Do you know that?
Yes, they actually suggested it. And so I've been working with the State Department on that. And Fatuma, I'm in awe of how far you've come as a teacher and leader. You have set up the FLS program. You helped implement those IEPs. And I'm so proud of you for starting your student teaching next year. You're going to be amazing.
Thank you.
Ms. Mancia, you're a little bit earlier in your school career, so I'd like to hear your story.
Yes, hi, my name is Gerania Mancia. Well, I currently work at CC Rondo. I've been there for 3 years already. I work with the FLS program. Initially, I started working with the STAR program, but now I'm with FLS, which I really like it. I don't complain at all. I've loved every program I've been in so far. I am in CSN, yes. I've been going there for like 2-3 years already. Honestly, it has been a struggle adapting to work being working full time and then coming back home, helping around with the family. Because initially I'm the first graduate from high school. So it's like I have to set an example, but at the same time, I have to work for my goals. So not only am I going to school, but I'm going to work and I'm helping out financially at home sometimes. And I initially started with education when I was like in 6th grade, I believe. It was from a teacher who inspired me to become a teacher, which it was hard for me when I was younger because my English wasn't perfect. It was hard to adapt to that English language because I come from a Hispanic background. So the language barrier was big, and going from from a D to an F student to an A, all the way to an A and a B student, it really gave me that satisfaction and that gratitude to be like, you know what, I think helping out students is something that I want to do. And then once I hit my high school years, I was able to work in a preschool, in an in-lab preschool. Then I was able to tutor at schools, and they gave me the opportunity to go teach at actual schools, so to do internships. But I really love education, and I am still looking forward. I'm like working hard for it to actually get my degree. Yeah, in early childhood education. Thank you.
We can make that happen, Miss Mancia. We can make that happen. Miss Lopez, can you share your story?
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Jen.
For the effort of time, I'm going to pause that. I have the full video available. Basically, when we require student teaching that cannot be done in conjunction with a working environment that makes sense, we are creating barriers for first-generation college students and students that teachers that represent our student population. So this bill would allow those 4 staff members to do their student teaching while they are working. We've spoken to NSHE, we've spoken to the teachers union, the superintendent of the state of Nevada. Everybody not only supports this bill, but needs this bill because currently we have about 400 to 700 vacancies just within CCSP. And with that, this bill would allow those support staff members to do their student teaching to remove that barrier. So we are open. Can I send it back over to Senator Dennis? This is new for me, so just let me.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford, and thank you for your time this afternoon. We'll let Chair Dennis take it from here.
Thank you. So as you can see, we have opportunities and we have people that are already working in our schools that could become teachers if we could just help them overcome those barriers. And so that's what this bill tries to address. So with that, Madam Chair, we do have folks here, as was mentioned, from UNLV, UNR, NSHE, that could address any other issues. I think the important thing is that we would try to create consistency. So no matter where you went, we could overcome those barriers no matter which institution you attended. So with that, willing to take, we are willing to take questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Dennis, and thank you again, Ms. Crawford, for what you do and for encouraging others along the way. And with that, we'll take questions from the committee. Senator Hardy, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I need to ask really basic questions. First of all, I think this is a wonderful concept and just awesome in what it can do for people who need to have a leg up in a process, as well as the students who need to identify with who they're having teach. I'm thrilled. I just have real basic questions. what is a support staff? What is an SPTA, if I understood it right? And what is a paraprofessional? And do they get college credits for teaching X number of hours per day while they student teach how many hours per day? How does it work? And who are they? Thank you.
I would have Ms. Crawford answer that.
Lots of acronyms in education, Senator Hardy. We'll go to Ms. Crawford.
Ms. Shelley Ziquiros, Cruz Crawford for the record. Thank you for asking that question. Remember, no questions are a dumb question. They are paraprofessionals that work in the classroom. So a lot of those names are other names for paraprofessionals depending on their role. So as you could see just from the video, each of these women that testified have 3 to 7 years experience within the classroom. So they work side by side a licensed teacher where they need additional supports based on, IEPs or programs. So that's your first question was, who are these people? Did you feel like that was a good answer? Okay. The second question that you had was regarding.
I'm shaking my head no. Okay. When someone says paraprofessional, that means they're a professional in what way? Are they do they have a certificate of some kind? Do they have anything? Are they a mother that comes in, and are they a mother helper? I literally do not know what a paraprofessional is in the education. I know your description that you're describing, but is there literally a position that is described as an SPTA? What are the criteria for a paraprofessional?
Senator Hardy, a paraprofessional is a member of the classroom that is a work and paid employee, and their credentials could range from no education to, depending on what Title I program they are in, up to 2 years of education. However, this bill would only apply to them once they did their traditional coursework for teaching. They did their 4 years, and then it came time for student teaching. They would not have to quit their job for that student teaching portion, and they would be able to continue their role while student teaching. So a paraprofessional can have no experience or experience, but in order for this bill to become a teacher, they wouldn't go from no experience to being able to be a teacher. They would have to go traditional program, complete their credits, and then during the student teaching portion, be able to continue that coursework in the classroom.
So they would have to get a degree before they student taught, and they can then student teach at the same time they're hired. But in that process of getting a credential, they're not going to be able to be a paraprofessional during that time unless they're taking night classes or whatever, correct?
Yeah, Senator Hardy, that's what they're doing now. So they're taking like one in the videos, they're saying like, we take one class at a time. They take them on the weekend. They take them online. A lot of the programs have flexible scheduling, but it's when they hit that student teaching part that really becomes a barrier, because they don't have a choice, because the coursework has to be done during live instruction. So then that flexibility of those weekend and nights goes away. And a lot of times it affects low income people, right? They can't take 16 weeks off, support staff members. So this is just another way to remove a barrier. We basically have kind of like, we have this pathway and everybody's getting clogged up here. And the only people that are getting by are the people that have the financial means or support to get by.
I love it. Thank you.
Can I add to this?
Can I jump in there really quick, Ms. Crawford and Senator Hardy? I think that, Ms. Crawford, you're absolutely right. And I think that the nemesis of the bill is helping people get through that student teaching time that we are traditionally not paid for. I don't think it has so much to do with where you come from as an aide or a paraprofessional. While those positions are really, really important because they've already been in a school setting, and that's who we're trying to encouraged to continue into our school setting. But the nemesis of the bill, if I'm correct, is that they will be able to continue to work while they did their student teaching. And that's what we want them to be able to do, because they could not just stop getting paid, because they would not be able to support their family or themselves in order to get through that semester of instruction.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, I believe you have Dr. Easton was going to make a comment on the paraprofessional thing, I believe.
This is Donald Easton Brooks. Excuse me, I'm the Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at UNR. I think one of the pieces that might be missing in this understanding, excuse me, is that right now there are barriers that will keep this from happening at this current point. And what we're trying to do, or what's being proposed here, is that we remove that barrier so that people can teach or use those experiences that they have to become a teacher. If we keep the current law in place, those teachers will have to, as mentioned, be removed from what they're doing to do something else, and then the potential of becoming a teacher won't happen. I've seen this in other states, for instance, in Minnesota, when they had a huge reading shortage and they did something like this with Paris. And it's an understatement how it really magnified the community. Not only were you able to get Paris who are diverse, working with more diverse students, you were changing lives of people being able to look at that upward mobility, and people were able to do things. Some of the things that is mentioned here by Crawford is that the impact of having diverse teachers can have on our student population. As she mentioned about the dropout rate, I've been involved in studies over the last years that even show that if students of color have at least one teacher of color, then their achievement scores go up significantly compared to those who do not. And at the same breath, what's being presented here, in a typical teacher prep program, students might get upwards of 600 contact hours with students throughout their program. Research shows that if we have teachers or have those who are going into teaching have at least 1,000 hours working directly with children, they tend to do better. And what's being proposed here are people who probably have those 1,000 hours even before they go into the program. And so they have that classroom experience to really do those things. They're getting the content now to enhance that. But what I've seen in other states, these teachers, their longevity in the state, their ability to connect to schools or community, because they're a big part of the community, they tend to be leaders and more of our more challenging communities, really gives them that kind of credibility to enhance or to reduce, should I say, our student dropout and to increase our graduation rates among our more challenging communities.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eastenbrook. That's such important information. Any questions from the committee? Senator Buck, please.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Dondera Loop and Senator Dennis. I think this idea is brilliant. I remember when my days at school, as I spent 18 years in the Clark County School District, raising up substitutes to do this very thing. But now in impacting support staff, I think that's what I love about charter schools. And if we pay more attention to the innovative work in charter schools, this has been happening for at least the last 10 years in charter schools in our valley, where support staff are paid and with benefits as to be teachers, to student teach in our charter schools. And I think that is crucial. So we have parents and support staff. And so I appreciate this bill because it really is innovative, and it looks to fill in the need, and especially because we're missing so many teachers in our state. So what I'm wondering, because I for 18 years was in the Clark County School District, so are you able to? Because one of my challenges when I was a building leader in the district was that everybody was just kind of like wedged into a job, and then to be able to be innovative in a system was what I always fought as a building leader. So are you going to be able to do this in these districts that aren't necessarily more flexible like a charter school is, and we're doing this?
So Chair Dennis, are you going to take that?
Yeah, I'll start, but Ms. Crawford can give you a hands-on. But I mean, that's the purpose of this, is so that we have some consistency throughout the state on being able to do this. So, but Ms. Crawford, I think she could address it how from a day-to-day basis how she sees it.
Thank you, Senator Dennis. Michelle Zigatos Cruz Crawford for the record. Thank you so much, Dr. Easton and Senator Buck, for sharing your experience. It really highlights the importance. So this allows us to get more creative, progressive, and innovative with that. And I can speak to specific scenarios I have right now. A lot of support staff members want to become licensed teachers in the area that they're currently working in. It's kind of that effect of, hey, my husband is a fifth generation iron worker. Why? Because that's what he's exposed to, right? So it's that exposure. So if they are trying to obtain a special ed license and they're in the special ed classroom, that's an easy no given, right? Where it gets a little bit critical is where I have a resource aide right now that wants a general ed license. So what I've been able to do is for her push-in minutes, allowed her to do the general ed instructor and the licensed teacher be able to do her special ed minutes. You need to be flexible. You need a staff that works together as a family. They're not going to do that if we don't have a great culture, right? You have to have aides that are willing to move around the building for a certain amount of time to make that happen. And I have not had any road bumps at my school to make this happen. We're creative, we're thinking out of the box. We're exposing staff to different teaching scenarios, which makes them better licensed teachers as existing right now. It allows for creativity to spring. So I have not had any problems, and I would be willing to help a principal out that hit a roadblock to help them figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're always happy that the charter schools have funding to do things like that. And I trust that the CCSD will do the same. But we know charter schools have different types of funding. Additional questions from the committee? Okay, without seeing any more, Senator Dennis, we'll go to support, opposition, and neutral. Broadcasting, if you'll go ahead and open up the lines, we'll start with support. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. If you would like to testify in support on SB 352, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in support on SB 352, please press *9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 577, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chris Daly, D-A-L-Y, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSCA supports SB 352 to allow paraprofessionals seeking a teaching credential to complete an accelerated program of student teaching. NSCA represents paraprofessionals in most Nevada school districts. Paraprofessionals perform a critical function helping to deliver a high-quality education to Nevada students. This ranges from assisting students with learning their alphabet to assisting their education to become functioning members of society. Paraprofessional duties are numerous and include assisting with evaluation of student work, reports on student progress and behavior, conducting small group sessions, helping develop differentiated lesson plans, assisting in instruction, enforcing classroom management strategies, and assisting students with assigned activities. Paraprofessionals are critical to all programs throughout school districts. During this time of online engagement, they have been the backbone to special education educators helping students online. Facing a chronic teacher shortage, especially from Nevada's diverse communities, The career pathway for paraprofessionals to become licensed teachers is of great importance. Many paraprofessionals are already working full-time in a Nevada classroom and already possess many of the skills to be developed through student teaching. There have been many paraprofessionals that have had to leave their jobs just to student teach. This has made choosing between paying rent, paying the bills, and finishing their degree a concern for NSEA. We also believe that adding experienced educators to the classroom improves student achievement. NSEA believes accelerating the 16-week requirement removes a significant obstacle to obtaining a teaching credential. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 120. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Ditto with one exception, which I would be more than happy to work with the sponsor and committee on. And that exception is subsection L, as in Larry, which is the reciprocity language, particularly with special education. I think it's important that there is some better check on folks not only coming into the state, but then also leaving the state in terms of, regardless of which level of service they're providing, that they have sufficient quality to be able to handle students with disabilities. With that, Madam Vice Chair, thank you, and I yield.
Caller with the last three digits, 023. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Dennis and committee members. My name is Dr. Brenda, Brenda Pearson, Pearson, and I am here representing the Clark County Education Association. CCEA is testifying in support on Senate Bill 352. Senate Bill 352 creates a pipeline of paraprofessionals who are eager to advance into the teaching profession, simultaneously establishing a career pathway that enables them to move from paraprofessional to educator and then, if desired, to administrator. It also enables them to establishes a diverse teacher pipeline, since paraprofessionals across our state more closely match the diversity of our students. Recruiting a diverse teacher pipeline is a prioritized goal of education systems across our nation, and now Senate Bill 352 provides Nevada such an opportunity. Nevada must address our teacher pipeline issue. However, Nevada must not only increase the teacher pipeline, but we must also squelch the attrition Nevada schools experience annually. It is a constant churning of entering new educators and exiting experienced teachers that stifled Nevada's ability to grow an experienced and impactful teaching force. The better we can prepare teachers upon entry into the field, the less likely they will be to leave the profession within the first 5 years. An important component of Senate Bill 352 is the ability of paraprofessionals to utilize their time within schools to satisfy their student teaching experience requirements. Since the student teaching experience lays a foundation of support for traditional educators entering the field, consideration of a high-quality student teaching experience must be central to the development of this program. There must be a careful balance that allows for an expedited course of study and a quality experience that will pave the way for these new educators to enter the field prepared. We believe Senate Bill 352 will give us an opportunity to develop a carefully balanced course of study. As Nevada continues to create opportunities to build our educator pipeline, we must also be aware of the preparation educators receive prior to entering the field. Nevada's efforts must not only increase the number of teachers employed, but must positively influence teacher practice and student outcomes. CCEA is in support of Senate Bill 352, and we are eager to continue conversations with the sponsor of this bill surrounding the need for high-quality student teaching experiences afforded to these educators.
Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 987. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dennis and committee members. My name is Marie Nisus, and I am the president of the Clark County Education Association. MARIENEISESS. I'm speaking in support of SB 352. This bill is important to me personally because while attending college part-time, I worked as a support staff employee in a variety of roles. I've worked for the Clark County School District for 29 years. I was honored to work alongside teachers who inspired me to become an educator. I wanted to make a difference in the lives of children. Along the way, I faced many challenges while attending school, working full-time, and raising a family, but most importantly, preparing for the financial burden of student teaching. While my support staff pay wasn't significant, it was a part of my family's household budget. I did what I could to prepare for the 16 weeks without pay or benefits. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, and I considered giving up. A few weeks before I was scheduled to student teach, I was in an automobile accident. The accident settlement gave me the financial support I needed to take a leave of absence to student teach. While that was an unfortunate accident, I was thankful I didn't have to drop out of school. During my journey to become a teacher, I noticed very few educators of color, yet many of our support staff paraprofessionals are people of color. We have an educator shortage, and one way to address the pipeline issue is to support our paraprofessionals who would like to become educators. Many times, educators come to work in Clark County but do not stay until retirement age. Our paraprofessionals are vested in CCSC and would more than likely stay until they retire. Paraprofessionals have a significant amount of classroom experience. Through my teaching career, I have encouraged and mentored paraprofessionals to become educators. But like me, they face the financial burden that comes with student teaching. We must continue to find ways to invest in our paraprofessionals. Allowing paraprofessionals who are enrolled in a program to become a teacher by completing an accelerated program of student teaching will help with the teacher shortage in their specific area in which they are employed. I urge you to vote yes on SB 352. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 498, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Erica Valdrez, ERICAVALDRIZ with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of SB 352. The Chamber believes that adoption of these regulations will be an effective way of recruiting when we look at qualified out-of-state or out-of-country student teaching experiences, all the while of mitigating the negative effects of teacher shortages and creating a more sustainable supply of well-prepared quality teachers. This bill will not only provide the necessary accountability for our Nevada students and education system, but aid with the process of the additional teachers we need in our state. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee, for your time. We urge your support for this bill.
Caller with the last three digits, 542, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin. And if you are having a hard time unmuting, press *6.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Fatuma Abdullahi. That's Fatuma. Last name Abdullahi. I am in FLS SPTA at CC Rono Elementary School. I was hired January 7th, 2015. I'm excited to be a part of this important bill. This bill will help thousands of employees in America, an employee just like me. It is my lifelong dream to become a special education teacher. For 7 years, I have worked for CCSD. I have been working in the same position. I will be finished by now, but I've been taking only 2 classes at a time because I have to work to pay for my rent, my car, and utilities bills. Now I'm at the point where I have to leave work so that I can finish my last year in school. This is the bill that is going to make hundreds of dreams come true. Dreams that are being delayed over and over again. Not only that, but this bill will help hundreds of students succeed in school because of the new fantastic teachers that will be hired. I want to thank my principal, Ms. Crawford, and everyone else who participated in making this possible. Thank you, senators, chairs, and committees.
Caller with the last three digits, 692. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Dr. Mary Przinski, Mary Pierczynski, representing the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, which is composed of superintendents from all 17 school districts. This is a bill Nevada has needed for a long time, and it's a common sense approach to dealing with the teacher shortage. It's also a common sense approach to supporting those who have already proven the value they bring to our classrooms and our students, and we're in full support. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits, 402. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
My name is Terry Schumann, last name Shuman. I am calling in support of SB 352. I want to appreciate Senator Dennis for introducing this bill, Ms. Crawford, and for everyone who has spoken in front of me in support. In 2002, I walked into a classroom in Biloxi, Mississippi, first time being a sub. I knew from that moment on, without any doubt, that I wanted to be a full-time teacher. I think back to a student of mine, that was in second grade. His name was Michael. For 3 days, we went over the math that he just did not understand. Day after day, he would come to my desk and I would work individually with him. Finally, on the third day, he popped his head up with eyes gleaming, said, "Teacher, I think I got it." I stopped class that day. We all had high fives. We all gave Michael a hug. And from then on, I knew that was to be my dream. For 19 years, I have had being a teacher on my bucket list. I can't believe when I heard this morning that this bill was being proposed this afternoon. I knew I had to speak on it. I have taught anywhere from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade, including voc tech, special classes such as PE, music, everything that you can think of in Clark County and in Biloxi. I know that this is only, this will guarantee for us who cannot financially make it to maybe someday realize our dream. I support SB 352 for this reason. One other thing is that it will also help with something that I've heard since day one coming into the district about cutting class sizes. This will provide the teachers that are needed to get into these other classrooms so that our class size can go down, that there can be more one-on-one time with each of our students. And I just ask you to pass it today. Thank you so much.
Caller with the last three digits, 398. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dennis, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the Senate Committee on Education. My name is Sabra Newby, SABRA-NEWBY, representing the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I am calling in strong support of SB 352. I want to thank Chairman Dennis for bringing this common sense bill forward. UNLV is in support of this bill as we believe that public education in Nevada is a continuum that includes higher education. With over 80% of UNLV students being Nevadans, we know that the vast majority of our students come from our public schools, which regularly face teacher shortages. In addition, more than 60% of our UNLV alumni reside in Nevada, including 5,000 K-12 teachers. This bill not only assists our students to have qualified, committed teachers, it also supports UNLV alumni in their desire to teach. For this reason, UNLV is in strong support of SB 352. Thank you for your time.
Caller with the last three digits 411, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair. For the record, Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. In the interest in time, I'll just say that I'd like to adopt the comments made before, and the Washoe County School District has been looking for innovative ways to achieve this without this legislation, and this will make it abundantly clear that this is an appropriate route for our paraprofessionals to take. We are certainly in full support. Thank you.
Caller with the last three digits 080, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Education Committee. My name is Brad Keating, BRADKEATING, with the Clark County School District, testifying in support of SB 352. To begin by answering a question that was posed earlier this afternoon, CCSD is 100% supportive of this bill, looks forward to implementing it across all of our schools. We certainly appreciate and are excited that one of CCSD's own, Principal Shelley Crawford, working with a number of community partners, including the Public Education Foundation, brought this idea forward. Ensuring there's a healthy teacher pipeline is incredibly important to the entire state, and there's no better way to work towards this than by using the incredible hardworking support professionals in our schools that are currently there. Because of this, we urge your passage of the bill, and thank you for your time.
If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support on SB 352, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last three digits 874, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin. And if you are having a hard time unmuting, just press star 6.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Rebecca Garcia, REBECCA-GARCIA. I am the president of the Nevada Parent-Teacher Association. All students deserve a qualified teacher. We recognize the impact on students of the ongoing teacher shortage and also recognize the commitment of support professionals to student success. We echo the comments of many who've called in before and recognize that this is one way in which we can help increase those in the teacher pipeline and also increase the amount of diverse, committed professionals who are in classrooms for our students. We urge your support of this legislation and thank the sponsors for bringing this important bill forward.
Vice Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you very much, broadcasting. And I'm going to pause right here and ask Senator Lang, if you could, with Chair Dennis's permission, if you could continue hearing the public comment. If I don't get over to my committee, they're hung up and we're not going to get back to this one at 6:30. So with that being said, Senator Lang, if you don't mind, I'd like to exit here. And Chair Dennis, thank you for your indulgence with me.
Thank you. No, we definitely need to get you to your committee so that we can finish ours later.
All right, we'll let Senator Lang take over, and thank you very much. And I'll see you all.
Great, thank you. So we will move to opposition on this Senate Bill 210.
Thank you, Senator. If you would like to testify in opposition on SB 352, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to testify in opposition on SB 352, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Senator, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Great, may we move to neutral?
Of course, if you would wish to testify in neutral on SB 352, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you would like to testify in neutral on SB 352, please press star 9 now. Senator Lang, there are no callers wishing to test in neutral at this time.
Great, thank you. Senator Dennis, would you like to give any closing comments?
Thank you, Acting Chair. I appreciate it. As you've heard, I mean, this is a common sense thing that, you know, we really want a teaching pool, but more importantly, we want to be able to our teaching pool to also reflect the communities that they live in and the students that they teach. And this is one way that we can do that. And we have people that are already committed to those communities and want to be there. And so I would urge support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And with that, we'll close Senate hearing 352. Senator Dennis, is the next one yours as well?
No, so
Okay.
It is. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes, it is. But however, that's the one that we're going to do at 6:30.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm going to do is I will. I think I would. I know there are perhaps some of you that might have to leave for another committee, but in order to help us save time later and to not make people wait several hours, I want to move to public comment now. And then when we come back, we'll just do the one bill that we have left to hear today. And so if we could go to public comment, anyone wishing to give public comment, limited to 2 minutes. And I know that committee members, if you have to be to a committee, then thank you for being here. And if not, I don't know how long this will go, but as soon as we're done with this, we're going to take a pause and then come back. So if we could go to public comment.
Yes, Chair, if you would like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, if you'd like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits, 072, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dennis and members of the committee. My name is Valerie Friskey, VALERIE I'm a resident of Assembly District 39. I retired after teaching for 45 years in Nevada, the last 37 years in Lyon County. I'm active in the Nevada State Education Association, retired, and I'm here to encourage you to consider the need for all education employees across the state to have access to quality, affordable health care upon retirement. Our members are facing escalating costs of health care and prescriptions. Please keep in mind that with Nevada being a WEP GPO state, many of our retired members won't have access to affordable health care because they won't and don't qualify for Social Security and Medicare. Currently, as my colleagues retire, they face insurance costs around $1,000 a month, at least. After spending their entire career as public school employees, this is kind of sad. We're aware and understand the state is facing very serious budgetary constraints, but we are asking for the legislators to fund a study on retiree health care for education employees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go to the next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 577, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin. And if you're having a hard time unmuting, please press star 6. Oh, we see you. There you go. Please proceed. Caller with the last digits 577, you could go ahead and proceed. Caller with the last three digits, 577. You are unmuted and you can proceed into public comment. I'm sorry, Chair. It looks like we lost the caller and their connection is not going through.
So we can, hopefully they can get reconnected. Can we go on to the next caller?
The public line is open and working. However, there are no more callers at this time.
So let's do about a 30-second pause just in case they can call back to give them that opportunity. So if we could be at a pause for 30 seconds.
Caller with the last three digits, 577. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and you may begin. Sorry, Chair Dennis, it looks like their connection is still not going through.
Okay. Well, we tried. Hopefully, if they they can always submit their comments in writing also. So,
Chair Dennis, this is broadcast. So sorry to interrupt. I could go ahead and try one more thing. Please stand by.
Sure.
My apologies, Chair Dennis. The caller has left.
Okay. So we'll hopefully we'll be able to get their comments one way or another. So appreciate that. Thank you. So with that, we have no further public comment. We still have one item on our agenda. We are going to go as a committee. We're going to go in recess until the hour of 6:30 or call of the chair. So partially that depends on the other committee that Chair Darrell Loop runs when that's done. So as soon as that finishes, we'll be able to start ours up. However, I won't do it before 6:30 so that if she gets done a little earlier, we can take a break and we'll start at 6:30. If it's not quite done at 6:30, we'll start whenever she finishes and we can get going. So any questions? Because I know we haven't done this yet this this session, where we've had to do a little bit later. So, okay. So with that, we will be in recess.